Hey there, so it has officially been signed into law, the new $484 billion interim stimulus bill. That includes $370 billion specifically for small businesses. That's the PPP, Forgivable Payroll Loan Program, and then the Disaster Loan Program as well. And if you're someone who has employees, lots of employees, a few employees, or even a sole proprietor with 0 employees, you need to look into that PPP loan program. If you're someone who's had damages and lost revenue or his business has suffered as a result of directly from this COVID-19 pandemic, you need to be looking into that disaster loan program. And if you want help being guided through the process, this is exactly why Tony and I created the 90-day stimulus kit training program. If you want to join into that and be guided with me and my team of professionals, click the link below, and I hope to see you inside, and make sure you take advantage of this round of stimulus funding.
Hey everybody, it's Tony Robbins. Listen guys, I know this is an incredibly tough time for all of us, and I can only imagine as a business owner the kind of stresses you're under, because people are stressed from the fear of the coronavirus. They've got stress worrying about their family, often having their kids at home, and then you have all your employees, your business, your clients, and everything else. And for the first time in history, we literally shut down the world economy. So you know what's going on. I just wanted to see if we couldn't offer you some help and some solutions. Every single day we have, 1.35 million people die in a car accident. 3,200 people die every day, and we don't stop driving because other people could injure us. They do every day. They cross those yellow lines and it happens. But what keeps us going is we're born with faith. I don't mean religious faith. I mean faith. The ability to have certainty in spite of the uncertainties in the world. There's uncertainties every day. You walk across the street and get hit by a car. You're driving down the street 60, 75, 80 miles an hour, and the only thing dividing you from a crazy is a little yellow dotted line. And every day people lose it and cross over and kill somebody. Some people do it because they fall asleep. Some people do it because, they're messed up in the head. Some people do it because they're texting, right? There's so many, it happens every single day, 3,200 people a day, but we don't say we're never going to drive because we can hurt each other. Well, how do we drive? Same, we're going to have to run your business with faith, with a sense of certainty, even though the world's uncertain. You got to bring that forth. That's what makes you a leader. And the way you do that is the consequence of not doing that. If I'm not willing to have faith, if I'm not willing to have certainty, even though every day somebody could kill me, then I have to stay home and do nothing, which is basically where we are in our lives and businesses right now. So faith, we have the ability, but we use it because we know the alternative is to have no life. And so we're going to be going back to work in our lives soon, but not everybody's going to go back with the same head. And so what I really wanted to do here is maybe just give you 6 quick little items to think about as triggers. And we did it earlier, so I'll just put it back on the screen for you. Just a little trigger that I'm doing in all my companies. Just I have, 54 companies, 12 that I actively manage. And they're everything from AI companies to a resort in Fiji to, the LAFC football club, our MLS Major League Soccer team. And just like that's one example. Here we have a team. I'm one of the owners, and we have a season that's been canceled. So imagine you have all the same overhead, huge, incredibly successful team, mass number of employees, right? You built the whole new stadium, and now you have no ticket sales. We were selling out every night, 22,000 people, no ticket sales, no TV revenues, no sponsors, right? And all the overhead. So I know many of you are dealing with that same thing. Or in Fiji, number 1 resort in the country, been sold out forever. No plane flights are going though, even though there's been no cases of death in Fiji. The rest of the world's freaked out, so it's stopped. And I got 200 employees there. So I want you to know, I'm not talking at you like somebody trying to pump you up. I get it. But what you and I have to do is really be creative. We've got to think things in a new way. And right now, while you can't be at work, perhaps with your employees, now's the time for you to figure out what to do and how to adapt, because we don't know what's going to happen. And what I want to focus on is I'm going to give you these 6 quick items. Then I'm going to take 2 minutes and just show you a couple of examples of people that are already adapting and growing their businesses in the middle of time when a lot of their competitors are shrinking. And then the primary focus here for I don't know how long this will be, probably an hour total here instead of 2 hours that we did earlier. Then the primary focus will be having you meet with one of my partners. Tyler McBroom has been in business 30 years. It's a father-son business. And it's really to help you get your hands around what is the government offering and how can you take advantage of it right now? Because you want to get in the front of the line. If you get the back of the line, it's going to take a while. The government's pushing hard. They're trying to do everything they can to help us. And there's probably going to be additional stimulus packages, more than likely. They're already talking about them. But you want to get on this one now. It's not a free, get out of jail card. You still got to work your tail off. But instead of if you have all this overhead and there's no choice, but your 2 expenses are your facilities, primarily for most people, one of your biggest expenses and your people. it's giving you a 90-day run to get you to July 1st, where one of the loans is up to $10 million that can help you take care of basically 2 months of what it costs to employ your people. So the government's going to pay for 2 months so you don't send them unemployment, so we don't see the economy get worse. And you got to pay for the third month. That's the essence of it. But it goes deeper than that. They'll cover about 25% of that money can be used towards your facilities and your utilities. So it's a real help. And you can absolutely take advantage of it. I did this site here just as a gift to you to try to make this happen. At the end, you'll see how to do it. You'll be able to go follow through. You have your questions answered. But in addition, Tyler will also walk through, and if you want to, he'll work with you. He can't work with you individually. He's already, been overwhelmed with clients. But I asked him if you do something where in a small group, he could work with you after this and actually coach you on everything from your cash flow to how to get these loans passed, to actually help you figure out how to file them and do them. So if you want to work with him afterwards, he's an offer for you for, I think it's $495 a month for 3 months. You can do it in a small group. Obviously, if you go check out this with a lawyer, as I did, I went through 2 or 3 lawyers trying to get the right answers. I spent more than $20,000 and still didn't get it done. Tyler got this done for us literally in 24 hours. And we filed and we've been approved. So you need to know where to apply, what to do, and Tyler's going to walk you through all that. This is not a pitch for services. I'm not making any money from this at all. I just want to make sure you're taken care of. So I just want to say, 1, do your homework so you're not living in fear. This is not life and death. We live for millions of years, thousands of years with these immune systems. Our bodies are very resilient, and the numbers, even though they're scary, they're very small compared to the other diseases that are all over the world that affect us. And if you don't know that, you look up your numbers. That's not to say don't pay attention, do everything the government's telling you to do, but don't let fear control you. 2, think about the opportunity here. There is some investment opportunity. If you're not in fear, that may be one of the best opportunities of your lifetime, of your generation. Think about it. I interviewed Sir John Templeton. I interviewed Warren Buffett, Ray Dalio, Carl Icahn when I wrote Money Master the Game and then Unshakable. And I did it because I wanted people to know what to do in a time like this, because we knew what's coming. In the past, about every 5 years, we'd have a bear market. We have the longest bull market in history, 10 years. No one thought it was going to be taken down because it was taken down by our response to a virus, by shutting down business. But it's here and you need to know what to do. And think about it. If somebody came to you and said, hey, I can give you a Ferrari for half off, $450 tomorrow, I'll sell it tomorrow, I'll sell it to you for $200,000, you'd be thrilled. But when stocks drop in price, people freak out. Some things really aren't worth it, some are. I'm not going to try and coach you down on this here, but I really want you to have the right asset allocation that can allow you to succeed. And I hope you're not going to just sell out of fear, but there's opportunities to get extraordinary companies at significant discounts, and there may be more in the future because there's a lot of volatility and a lot of fear still. So to help you with that, I'm not going to try and do that here in 2 minutes. And then finally, third here, let me walk you through, and I'll just play the video from earlier, the 6 items. They're kind of a little checklist of what you want to do in your business so you don't get too optimistic and you don't get too pessimistic. If you get too pessimistic, you give up. You get too optimistic, you're not going to be ready for what you got to do to make real changes now. So I'll walk those through in the video, and then I'll take you and show you a few people that have adapted to the environment. And then I'm going to bring Tyler on here and show you precisely what's available, how you can take advantage of it, what you can do. And then you can go do this on your own. Or again, if you want some help, Tyler's got a simple way for you to potentially do it. Or maybe you have somebody who can help you already. The purpose of all this is just to do what I hope you'll do. I hope in the midst of all this time, you'll keep your head straight. You'll think things clearly. And you'll think about your clients. Think about what they need right now. There's so much uncertainty and fear. And then over-deliver for them. Do some things from right now they don't expect. And so that's what I want to do for you by bringing Tyler in and trying to give you this little quick education. So this is the quick pre-frame. The rest will be cut down version, so you don't have to go through 2 hours to get the core of it. You'll get it right now in less than an hour, 45 minutes, I think it is. I don't know what the total time is, but it's a lot shorter than it was. So hope you enjoy it. Reach out to me on Instagram, if you will, or anything else. Tell me what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear. And take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Let's take care of our clients. Look, we are a resilient species and we will get through this, and we're already starting to get through it as we speak. The bigger challenge will be the business challenge, which is why we want to help you in this area. If I can help you anywhere else in any events or something of that nature, of course, we're available to you. And if you're one of our already clients and we've had to reschedule events, I hope you know I have never canceled an event in 42 years of my life, 43 years now of doing this. That's how long I've been communicating, speaking, and doing events. Last year, I had poisoning. I had, not aluminum, what is it? What's the word? Mercury poisoning, excuse me. That burned a hole in my esophagus. I was rushed to the hospital, And I was down in the Gold Coast of Australia, or Cairns in Australia. And I literally got on stage in a wheelchair and finished the seminar. So I want you to know, if you're one of our clients, I'm committed to deliver for you the minute the government allows us. And we've rescheduled everything that we were doing previously to still happen basically from July on. And so you can still look to us as a resource if we can be helpful to you. Okay? That's the preamble, a little 10, 12 minutes. Now let me give you the 6 keys. Let me show a few people and then turn you over to Tyler so you can see how you can take advantage of what the government's offering. And once again, whatever you do, whether it's Tyler or someone else, act on it right away because there's limited time to get in. And there's a huge amount of money, but a huge amount of businesses that are going after it. And if you get in the system, if they do what they're talking about, which is maybe expanding the program, your numbers, your things will already be in place and you can take advantage of it. I'm just trying to do everything we can to support you as a brother or sister on the path. If you're a business owner, you've taken risks, you've taken your vision and tried to make it real, and you've probably busted your tail, and maybe you're really succeeding, maybe you're just starting to grow, and then, boy, somebody threw you the biggest curveball of your life. So there's options to turn it around, and listen, we can wish it was easier or we can get better. And my philosophy is let's get better. So here's some tools, here's some insights, real simple ones, and I hope to hear from you soon and hear how this may have helped you, I hope, and looking forward to hopefully seeing you sometime or seeing the results of your success as you get to the other 90 days of this and we start to hopefully see some light at the end of the tunnel. Blessings, God bless, and let the session begin. So I want to give you just a quick little checklist, 6 simple things that I'm doing as my way of how to work with all the companies I work with to say, how do we deal with this issue? The first one is you've got to realize that Humpty Dumpty is not going to be put back together again, at least not the same way. There's a lot of people that are super optimistic that we're going to go back to work and everyone's going to just go back to the way they were. You know, if you're in the movie business and people have been out of the habit of going to movies, not people that go once in a while, but that business is based on movie goers. People that go 2, 3, 4 times a month, every Friday or twice a month, that's their business. Well, they've been home watching Netflix during this time and they've been home away from that habit. And now there's friction. If I go out, are they going to put a thermostat on me? Are they going to, some of the people in the movie business are talking about putting people initially 6 feet apart. Who's going to go to a movie with their date sitting 6 feet apart? So you have to think differently and say, okay, how will the world change? And how do we adapt to that? What are the things that we can do right now to prepare for it before we go back to work so that we're ready for that? But you can't do that if you're just going to be overly optimistic. You also don't want to be overly pessimistic. What you want to do is step 2 is you got to know your numbers. Right now, more than ever, most entrepreneurs have a cursory understanding of their numbers. They'll say to their accountant, and most people are accountant, not a CFO, because CFOs are expensive, chief financial officer, and they'll say, how am I doing? You're doing great. You're up 10% on profit, 20% on profit. Some of you have been in business long enough to come to the end of the year and go, I'm 20% profit, where's the cash? And cash and profit are not the same thing. Profit is an accounting principle, it's a concept. Cash flow is what your business lives on. So you gotta know your numbers and you gotta call it tight. Meaning, just like you don't wanna over exaggerate, it's gonna be perfectly the same, and you don't wanna make it the world's over, because then you won't do anything, you'll just give up, you'll be out of business. Similar in your numbers, you don't wanna pretend it's the same, overly optimistic. You don't wanna be pessimistic that you can't do the job. But you have to figure out where the holes are, where the expenses are, where you're gonna have to cut to survive and therefore then get to thrive again. And these are tough decisions, which is the third step. In all my companies, I'm teaching all my executives, you gotta make the tough decisions now because they'll be much harder to do later on. You gotta kill the monster while it's little, handle the challenge while it's really there. And as leaders, all of us are paid to make the tough decisions. An easy decision anyone can make because the answer is obvious, you're not gonna be wrong. But when it comes to tough decisions, that's when most people look to someone else to tell them what to do. And that's, by the way, the few people on here, obviously there's all kinds of people in this environment giving different pieces of feedback as we've been talking, but the ones that are like, oh my God, you're not listening to these people. Well, you got to think critically. You got to listen to them and ask questions. You got to compare the facts. Same thing's true in your own business. You got to make the tough decisions. What's got to be cut? What's got to be changed? Where are you going to go? What can you do to adapt? Those things need to happen early on now, not 3 weeks from now, 6 weeks from now, whatever it is, we end up getting back to work 8 weeks from now, whatever it's going to be. Fourth, get help. Listen, I have a lot of skill in this area. I'm sure you do too, but I'm constantly reaching out to leaders who've been through this. I've been around long enough to remember, 18% inflation back in 1978, 79, I was a young kid trying to buy my first piece of real estate, a little triplex, and it was 18%. So how do you manage that? You talk to people that went through the 1987 crash that was shorter, the 1991, 2001, when we went through the tech bubble, and then 9/11, 2008. It's really good to talk to people that have succeeded through tough times because they give you a different perspective. And I'll be interviewing those, and I'll be sending out some podcasts related to some of their messaging for you coming forward. But you want to get help. And you also want to get help on finding out how to get the government's help. And we're going to cut to that in less than 5 minutes here, just wrapping this up. Let's go to the next one. You want to brainstorm solutions and maybe do some what we call tests of skunkworks. Skunkworks is, you might say, okay, for example, in one of our businesses that some of you are related to, let's say the seminar business, we had 12,000 people in San Jose, and we had about 2,000 people were afraid, and we gave them their money back, and we had still another 10,000 want to go forward. But the government wouldn't let us go forward. They made it clear we're not going to do this. Large groups are not going to matter. So we had to reschedule the event, for this summer, which we've done. But in the meantime, like most of our business, we decided to do some tests. So we filmed the entire Unleash the Power Within event, to give you an idea, in virtual reality. And we tested it with a group of about 50 people watching in a small room so they could be separated out and so forth, and got extraordinary results. Do we want to go do that as our way of delivering? Heck no. But are we ready to? The answer is yes. So now's the time to test some things. Some of you know our business mastery program in 2008, we developed that to help businesses, and it was a test. We had no idea it would get as big as it is. Now it's one of the most powerful ways that we are able to touch people. And then finally, you need to get yourself in a beautiful state. Just by the comments, some people laughing, it's great. Some people solution-oriented, some people freaked out that anybody's telling anybody anything other than the religion they've been taught, or that things could get better. You got to look at your own psychology. You can't lead from that place. You can only lead other people into a place of more fear. But if you can get your own head together in a strong way and get yourself in a beautiful state doesn't mean it's like everything's perfect and easy. It's just finding the good in it. And I'm hoping that while you're home with your family, you find a way to deepen some of those relationships, even though the environment might be stressful. Learning how to catch yourself as a leader, learning how to take care of your health. Like, I am training the hardest I've ever trained in my life because I've never had this many days off. And my 6 months starting in July, God willing, will be what I normally do in a year. So I'm taking care of my body because my body and my mind are tied together, and they are for you too. So, and looking for people to serve that are worse off than you are will put your challenge in perspective, right? And it's a chance to kind of change old habits. And if I was going to add a final one that's not on the screen, I'd say this is the time to obsessively find a way to add more value to your clientele. To see, how can I do more for clients than I've ever done before? What can I do for my clients at this time? I can remember in 2008, one of my friends owned a casino there in Las Vegas, and Las Vegas was shutting down. He came to Business Mastery, and very bright businessman, and it was middle of 2008. I was saying, now's the time. If you over-deliver for your clients now, you'll own them when winter ends. Winter isn't forever, no matter how bad it is. Some winters are long, some are short, but spring always follows. What follows the night is the day. This is not forever. It will be in some people's heads, and you have to be prepared for that. So if you're giving more, if you're keeping your head together, if you're not letting the fear drive you, then what do we do over the next 90 days, roughly? Because when are we going to get out of this? No one knows for sure. We've been in touch with people in the president's office. I've talked to some of the top investment people, the Ray Dalias, the Carl Icahns, the Paul Tudor Joneses, the Kyle Basses, and virologists. And what most of them are seeing is they believe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we hit the peak right about now, right between basically now and the 15th of April. And there'll be a 14-day delay perhaps on deaths in those numbers, but then the numbers should start to come down. And I guess those are projections that are better than what you saw previously, that the number of deaths is not going to be 2 million. It's not going to be 500,000. It's not going to be that close, that we're going to start to see it coming down. And then hopefully sometime in late May, perhaps Memorial Day, we'll be able to start going back to work, maybe in waves, maybe groups, June. And then hopefully by July, we're moving more back into where everybody is fully employed who can be. And then we got to deal with the challenges in our economy. So how do you get from here to there with all this overhead and with probably sales that are depleted in your business? For that, I'm going to bring you my partner. And my partner is Tyler McBroom. He's a company that's been around 30 years, accounting firm. We have a global accounting advisors group. We have accountants all over the world that are our partners. I started out with huge firms, but I found they gave very poor service to small and medium-sized businesses. They were just, weren't worth the revenue to them. And so I looked for partners around the world that had been in business for many years, been through ups and downs, and knew how to coach businesses as like a virtual CFO. And that's a service that we've been offering for years. Because to me, I was near death in several of my businesses over the years. I can remember where I thought I was driving 50 miles an hour in our business, but we were growing so fast we were driving 120, but the numbers were not right. I thought a full tank of gas, meaning plenty of cash, we were on E. And so my near-death experiences is because I had accountants telling me numbers versus a CFO explaining what the numbers mean and how you could change one thing and change your whole business. And so the problem is most businesses generate less than $1 million gross. Only 5% of businesses in the whole world do more than that. It's pretty mind-boggling. And so hiring a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 CFO is not an option. So we created services that were $300 to $1,000 a month range for different services and businesses to do this. And so I have these partners already doing it around the world. So when this government situation occurred, I said, I've got all these companies, I got to know what to do. I went to 3 huge law firms, you would normally think would be the ones to handle this, but this was really unique. They weren't on top of it. They had lots of clients. And then I went back and said, why don't I have Tyler do his research? And found out he was already doing it. He did more for our companies in a shorter period of time than all 3 other legal firms. So that's why I decided to have this session. I said, you know what, why don't we, through a free webinar up, let's see if we can get people to understand the facts so maybe they're not as afraid of this, so they can start at least not being in fear. Second, let's just plant a seed or 2 and give them some value that can help them see they might take advantage of this time where things are on sale. But most important, let's see if we can show them what to do financially, what this offering is from the government, how to qualify, what to do, and then and you'll be able to go do it on your own. And if you want him to help you at the end, he can do that in groups really, really inexpensively. I think like $4.95 a month for 3 months or something. He'll tell you. But this is not a pitch. This is, let's show you what's available to you right now that you could use from the government to keep your people employed, keep your business together during these tough times. So having said that, let me invite on my dear friend, Tyler McBroom. Give him a hand if you would, a virtual one.
Yeah, good to see you too. Excited to teach some people about the stimulus bill today. So should I just go ahead and dive on in?
Yes, please.
Really appreciate you having me on to break down all of the elements of this massive $2.2 trillion stimulus bill that we've got going on. Before I dive into the high level elements of it, I just want to say very quickly that these interpretations on these discussion points are changing daily. This is what we know right now, and we're monitoring this literally hour by hour. We've got a whole team going through it, figuring out what the Treasury's coming out with, what the banks are saying, all of that. So this is what we know as of up to this very moment, but it is going to continue to evolve. And then, of course, on these matters, we're going to share some important information and things that can definitely apply to your business. But we want to make sure that you want to cover it with your professional, your individual professional, to make sure that how it applies to you. This isn't individual tax advice. So just got to announce that before we dive in. So now that that's out of the way, let's discuss how to get these people the relief they need. So our mission in serving business owners, as you kind of hinted at, Tony, is really to help small business owners succeed as they define success. And really what our expertise is typically is working with them with a mix of powerful tax planning services, that virtual CFO piece where we're helping them understand where their cash is and then helping them get their books in order. But these aren't normal, typical times. And so we noticed a need for something else during these unprecedented times. And I came across that on my Instagram. So this is from my Instagram stories feed. So I was just curious to see how businesses have been impacted through this pandemic that's going on in this sphere. And so I went onto my stories and did a poll to say, is your business, how's it being impacted? Is it about to shut down or shut down completely? Has business dropped significantly? Or are you doing okay? And unfortunately, nearly 2/3 of businesses answered that they were either shut down significantly, or about to shut down. I had an example in the last week of a coffee shop client who was on track to go, we've been riding this amazing economy. He was on track to go from $650,000 in sales in 2019 to hit $2 million in sales in 2020. And last week he did $190 it's terrible. And he's open for business still, but it's just no one's going out because of that fear. Any event company businesses, wedding planners, any business that relies on that in-person or that foot traffic. My mom owns a children's clothing store. It's just been devastating to those businesses. We literally, when we started reaching out to see how we could help, we had clients breaking down in tears on the phone with us. And so we did that skunkworks thing that you referred to. We decided to pivot and really help on, and essentially turn all of our resources to how can we help them through the process of securing the relief that was available at the time. And then since then, this massive $2.2 trillion bill was released. And so we've gone full deep into figuring that all out. And so that's, how you and I came to say, let's bring this to the public. And so I want to share all the items that's available to you today and how you can secure access to that. So this is at a high level, some of the items that we're going to cover. So they have disaster loans of up to $2 million that are at 3.75% interest. You can pay those back over up to 30 years, and that's for working capital loans. They have an emergency grant feature that can get you up to $10,000 cash, supposedly immediately. We'll get into a little bit of that later. You can defer payroll taxes until as late as potentially 2022 for your payroll taxes this year. You now have the ability again to carry back any net operating losses you've had in 18, 19, or this year. And I'll get in. So net operating loss, if you're not familiar with that term, I'm going to break that down a little more towards the end of the presentation. Then they have these employee retention payroll tax credits. If you've had a drop to your business, but continue to keep your team on, they have payroll tax credits where you can get money back on your payroll taxes. And then, of course, the big one that everyone is interested in and trying to figure out, these forgivable loans of up to $10 million that you literally don't have to pay back. Like you said, if you handle it correctly, if you spend it on payroll costs, rent or mortgage interest, and utilities in the 8-week period after funding. So we're going to break down all of those different elements, but specifically wanted to focus on right now first, that big up to $10 million, quote, free payroll loan. So how it works is this. So you have two components, a maximum loan amount, and then you have a forgiveness period and a forgiveness amount calculation. So how they calculate your maximum loan potential is they take your previous 12 months payroll, benefits, and state and local payroll taxes. Benefits count health insurance plus any employer portion of retirement contributions paid. They take that total amount and divide it into a monthly average. Then they multiply that monthly average by 2.5. So let's say your total payroll costs were $1.2 million. That makes it an average monthly payroll of $100,000 a month. Multiply that by 2.5, you can get a $250,000 loan through this program, the Payroll Protection Plan, or PPP for short. And then once they disperse that loan, whatever you pay on payroll, your rent or your mortgage interest, and then your utilities in that 8 weeks after disbursement is totally forgiven. Like actually forgiven, you don't have to pay it back. The debt forgiveness isn't taxable, which normally if debt is canceled, then you have to pay tax in that amount. That's not the case here. It's just forgiven, free payroll, rent, and utilities. But there is a major factor in forgiveness. And that factor is based on the percentage of headcount that you retain compared to the prior period. So the goal here is they want to keep people employed. So kind of that hopefully where life is back to, economy we'll see, but at least day-to-day life is back to normal by 3 months from now. They're wanting to encourage and reward people for keeping, or employers for keeping their employees on the staff. And that's the goal here. So what they do is they take your average full-time equivalent, so your full-time headcount during the period from February 15th to June 30th, and then divide that by what your headcount was in either the first 2 months of the year or the same period last year, February 15th of 2019 to June 30th of 2019. And they let you take the more favorable number. And then whatever that percentage is the amount of those qualifying expenses that you get to deduct. So if your qualifying expenses is $1 million, let's say, and your head count in the current period is 80 team members, and the prior period was 100 team members, that's 80%. So 80% of that $1 million that you shell out is what is totally is forgiven. If it ends up that you kept all 100 employees, then all of that would be forgiven. But if your head count drops more than 25%, then you lose all forgiveness. So in that case, in that example, if you went from 100 team members down to 60, even though you paid $1 million out during that 8-week period, the full loan would still have to be paid back. So it's really essential that you run those headcount calculations and you keep enough people to make sure that your loan is going to be in that forgivable range. And then they recently just had some new guidance, as this is changing all the time. So now the lenders are actively working on these loans. They finally said the business owner must come up with these loan calculations themselves, which most business owners aren't trained in navigating Excel spreadsheets and full-time equivalent calculations, at least not a lot of the ones that I've met with and worked with throughout my career. But it's still essential that you run these calculations correctly. Otherwise, you might not get the maximum loan amount that you're eligible for because you did the payroll calculations and ran the payroll reports wrong. Or even more important, let's say you planned on having all that forgiven and you didn't plan out your expense timing correctly, or you laid off too many people during the forgiveness period, and then all of a sudden you're stuck paying it back, and then you went into massive debt to keep your team on. That either of those scenarios are not good scenarios. So a couple other key planning items is that generally speaking, so we've run these numbers across many of our clients that have come to us and said, hey, I'm looking at maybe needing to lay these people off. We're not open. We can't operate. I need to lay some team members off. And then they've given us different rounds of scenarios, or what would happen if we kept everyone but got this loan. So across pretty much every scenario we saw, the numbers worked in favor of keeping your entire team when compared to laying off everyone right now and not taking the loan. And if you're looking at getting the loan and laying off 20% of your team, the numbers still worked in favor of keeping your entire team from a strictly financial standpoint. Now, if there's people that are, you're looking for an opportunity to let go of anyways, that's a culture decision, not a numbers decision. But in general, the numbers work out in favor of keeping your entire team. And then another common question that has come up is, if I have $50,000 of payroll and my lease is $100,000, can I get this loan? And now I've got free rent for a couple months. They came out and said, no, you can't do that. Everyone's going to be applying for these loans. So we want to make sure the goal of this is to keep people across the country employed. So at least 75% of your total expenses within this forgiveness period must be paid on payroll, used for payroll expenses, not rent or utilities. So that's a key factor in there when you're planning out your calculations on the forgiveness period of the loan. So additionally, the loan forgiveness period applies for the 8 weeks during the covered period. Now that covered period ends June 30th, which means if you get your loan dispersed after May 5th, it's possible that you won't enjoy that full 8 weeks. You'll only have 6 weeks worth of payroll, or 4 weeks or 5 weeks, depending on when that loan is funded. So it's important when you're doing your planning that you get it in as early as possible. Now, I have a feeling, because there's some talks, and I'll show you on the next slide, that there's more stimulus coming. So my hunch is that they're going to extend this covered period so that it's a full 8 weeks, no matter when you get the loan dispersed. But that's what it is right now. And
so everybody listening understands at the most simple level, the government's done something actually intelligent here, which is if everybody who owns a business, and your biggest expenses for most people are obviously those you employ and your physical facilities. If everybody there who's trying to survive has to let go of their people, then unemployment, which is already taking a gigantic hit, would take an even greater one. And then people are not productive. And so rather than doing that, they're trying to incentivize you and I and all business owners to say, what can we do? Well, let's provide them a 90-day period for them to get through this time, basically, where we're going to give them 8 weeks, 2 months of coverage of the incomes for the majority of their people under $100,000. And we're going to then have them have to carry a month. So think of it as they're going to pay for 2 months of your fundamental overhead of people and of the 25% towards facilities and utilities, and then you're going to carry a month. And that'll get you through to about July 1st if they don't add more to it. Now, there's discussion today in Congress about increasing those numbers. We'll see where they show up. And if you're already in the system, it's going to be easier to tap into it. So it allows you to say, okay, instead of letting my people go, let's see where the world is in 3 months. And let me see if I can keep them all, because right now I can. So they're trying to give you significant incentives to do that. And I hope the majority of you will tap into this. The secret, though, is you want to get to the front of the line as quick as you can to get this done and get the right numbers done. And you can do that on your own, or you can come back to Tyler. But Tyler's got some additional benefits to show you. But I just want to give you the big picture. Think of a 90-day plan to get to some sunlight and where you don't have to be bleeding the entire time. And that's what the government's doing. And we worked with Tyler in this case, and we got approved yesterday, to give you an idea. So we've been able to do it rapidly. Not all banks are equal in this area. Some banks are saying we're taking applications, but we're deciding, especially some of the big banks. So you want to get some advice on banks that are working. So City National, I know, for example, has been moving rapidly. That's the one we went with, but you'll have to do your homework, or if you work with Tyler, he can tell you some of the banks that he's working with as well. Please continue, Tyler. I just want to give him the big picture.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing that. Definitely hopping in. And on the bank, I would first go to the bank you have a relationship with. If you have a lending relationship with a bank already, that's the place you want to start, because the banks right now, from everyone I've talked to who's really focused on in the lending space on this, the banks aren't figured out how they're going to make money on this. They're worried that they're not going to get reimbursed from the SBA. So they're really focusing on their current clients first, and especially the bigger banks. And then the other piece is a lot of community banks are doing their best to use this as a way to grab market share. So the community banks are more open to taking in new clients to focus on this. So I would start with, if you have a pre-existing lender that you're working with, talk to them, and then community banks. And then, I've got a few relationships as well that are working on putting these to the top of the pile. So, but as is highlighted by the things that Tony mentioned and these banking relationships, it's essential to move fast, because every business out there under the sun is wanting to apply for these right now. And so it's crushing the lending system. It's just an overwhelming influx.
I just want to also clarify one thing, because I've seen a few people, I'm reading some of the chat going on as well. Uh-huh. And some of the people are saying, well, how long is the forgiveness? Let me be clear. The government's trying to get you to keep people for 90 days. If you keep them through June 31st, and then you have to let them go, you will still have forgiveness for the money that you borrowed that relates to that time period. So it's not that you have to keep them for the full year. The government knows you're going to need more money to keep those people. They're probably going to provide more. We don't know for sure, but they're talking about it as we speak. But what it allows you to do is see, what's the world like? How's my business responding? How are my clients responding as we go back to work and things start to begin to normalize? That's what they're trying to get you to. So if at the end, if you're going to cut people and they're the wrong people, you probably want to let them go. But if there are people that are good but not great, or people that are good, you don't want to let them go, but the economics require it, this is kind of giving you a bridge to July 1st. And again, there may be an additional bridge, who knows? But if you have to do something afterwards, you will still get forgiveness for the entire loan, as long as you do it within the formula that Tyler is showing you. Okay?
Yeah. Tyler? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're looking for the forgiveness window up to June 30th is what your head count is based off of. Yeah. And to Tony's point about potentially some new stimulus. So this was a tweet yesterday from Marco Rubio that they're meeting tomorrow. That schedule may have changed, but looking at pumping another $200 to $250 billion into just the PPP loan. So the circumstances are literally changing daily, and there's talks of several other stimuluses. So you can apply. In addition
this is a separate thing you can apply for, so people are clear.
Yeah, so you have the PPP loan, which is the up to $10 million loan, and that's strictly calculated based on your actual payroll costs. And then the other loan program, the massive loan program that's out there, is the disaster loans. They're called EIDL loans, economic injury disaster loan. So these are up to $2 million of a loan, and you can use those funds for all business operations except growth. So you can't take out a $400,000 loan and go spend it on Facebook ads, for example, or any other sort of marketing or growth options. And you do have to pay this loan back. There's no forgiveness on these SBA disaster loans, but for a working capital loan through the SBA, it's pretty cheap money. So it's at 3.75%, and it's paid back over up to 30 years. And they'll actually roll in existing SBA loans that you've had before March 31st and pay the principal, interest, and fees on all of that for the next 6 months. So there's a deferral of up to 6 and as much as 18 months, depending on how all of this shakes out for these SBA disaster loans. Now with these, you do have to submit evidence of damage from with your company from COVID-19. So when you're putting the package together, this is why it's important. They say it's DIY, do it yourself, but so many people are going to do it themselves and not actually qualify because it is a loan. They're looking at your debt and your debt ratios on your personal side and your business. So and then also how have you been impacted by COVID-19? So you're going to have to put together a letter explaining how you've been damaged by this entire pandemic.
And Tyler, can you compare that to the $10 million loan? Because some people I'm reading are wondering what their credit's like, how much of the government is guaranteeing on that. Can you just clarify that? And also, isn't it a 1% loan on the 10 million, up to 10 million?
Yeah, so it's 1%. It's paid back up to 2 years. And it was 0.5%, and then they bumped it up to 1%. And it's paid back over 2 years. They're relaxing the credit requirements.
That's what I wanted you to get across to people.
Yeah. So normally for an SBA loan, you have to have a 680 credit score, is what my main lender contact has told me. They've lowered that significantly. I don't know the exact credit score, but I know it's much lower, maybe in the high 5s to low 6s. And then it's not a collateralized loan, so you don't have to put up any sort of collateral and assets against that payroll loan.
The government is the one that's guaranteeing it, guys, so you understand. So it's not like a typical loan. For some of you that may have been struggling, you could still potentially qualify for this. You should really get your application in and see where it is, because it's not going to be based on you giving assets, and it's going to be a lot lower based on your credit than it has in the past, since the government's guaranteeing it. I just want people to know that. And it's 1%. Besides the forgiveness, if you handle it properly, it's 1%. That's what you're being charged. It's, inflation is more than that, obviously. So it's the equivalent of free money, because the government wants you to keep these people employed during this time. And also, again, if you get in the system, your chances, if they then make some addition to the system, you're already in it. That's why I want to push all of you to do this rapidly. It's why we slammed this together as quickly as we could to make sure you were all exposed to it. Please continue, Todd.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the SBA disaster loan, and they're lowering even though this is a working capital loan, the disaster loans also have lowered credit requirements and collateral requirements too. So the big goal is to get business owners capital so that they continue to keep the lights on and keep their people employed. So those are the loans. Now it's a $2.2 trillion bill. We showed the difference in days on million, billion versus trillion earlier. And so there's a lot more than just loans that's being covered with this. So some of the other elements, one of the pieces is a new sick leave requirement. So if someone is sick with COVID-19, now this isn't just you have a sniffle, but you are sick with COVID-19, or you're caring for a relative who is, or you're a parent whose kids are out of school and you have no other childcare options, the employer must pay them for up to 80 hours of leave. Now those requirements are different if it's self-care, so you're leaving because you're sick, or you're leaving to take care of a family member. So if you're leaving for self-care because you have COVID-19 yourself, then the employer must provide full wage replacement up to $511 per day. Now that's 80 hours is basically 2 weeks or 10 days of pay. So it's a max of $5,110. Now that doesn't mean everyone who gets sick with COVID-19 and goes home automatically gets $511. It's just whatever their current wage is. So just want to make that clear. As business owners, if your team members are thinking suddenly they get a free vacation because they're saying they're sick with COVID-19, it doesn't mean they're automatically going to get all this free money. And if you're leaving to care for a family member or their child's school is closed, then the employer must provide 2/3 of their wage replacement up to $200 a day. So that's a big difference between if you're sick yourself versus having to leave to care for someone else. The other thing is that you will get reimbursed in the form of a payroll tax credit for 100% of this sick leave. Where the big issue is the cash flow on that, because you have to pay your team members now. And so the federal government is working to get rapid payroll tax credits to people so that they don't have business interruptions on the cash outlay of people leaving because they're sick. And then if you have less than 50 employees and you can prove that it's going to jeopardize you staying in business, if you pay your employees who are out sick with COVID, then you're exempt from this. So this is really for the larger employers that have people who are leaving on sick leave.
And I just want to reinforce, for those who have 50 or more people, there are some individuals that have heard things online or read things, heard things on the news, and think they can get $511 a day not working by saying they're sick. It has to be COVID-19, and it's a percentage of your income with a maximum of $511 a day for that period of time. If you're taking care of someone else, it's $200 a day. And if you are an employer like that, you will be reimbursed, so the money will come back to you. But some people are under a false assumption about how this works. It's not how it works. So you'll want to make sure your HR department or somebody you're working with gets the data to them so that your employees are clear what's true, because otherwise they're going to be disappointed or frustrated or mad because they're misinformed.
Yeah, exactly. And then speaking of payroll taxes, you can defer up to 100% of your payroll taxes until late 2021 or early 2022, which is a significant amount of time that you can defer the employer portion and all of your payroll taxes. And that actually counts the employee portion too. And so that can, employee or payroll taxes typically are somewhere between 15 and 18% of your wages. So if you can defer that, if you're in a cash crunch. Now, if you don't need the cash crunch, I would maybe really consider whether you want to defer those or not, because essentially that's just building up debt to the federal government. But that is a way to help you in a cash crunch. And then they have another refundable payroll tax credit of 50% of the payroll taxes on up to $10,000 of wages per employee. So that's a lot of random numbers kind of thrown out. What the math works out to is you get up to $155 per employee as a payroll tax credit, which isn't a huge amount, but it's better than nothing. So, and with that, to qualify for that refundable payroll tax credit, number one, you must show that you've had at least a 50% reduction in sales compared to the prior year in the same period. And then if you take out the payroll forgiveness loan, the PPP loan, you're not eligible for this refundable payroll tax credit. So that's a decision to weigh when you're looking at those two options as well. You can also, and I hesitated to even mention this almost, but you can withdraw up to $100,000 penalty-free from your retirement. This is one you want to be very careful with, especially if you go and read Unshakable, because you don't want to steal from your financial future. And that $100,000 is penalty-free, but it's not tax-free. So if you're in a 25% federal and let's say a 6% state bracket, you're still going to pay 31% on that money when you pull it out. You're just not going to pay 41% on that money. And so I would encourage using this as a very last ditch option if you really, really can't meet ends meet. But that's just something that is an element of the bill. And then they have a $10,000 emergency advance. And that at first when they rolled it out it was part of the disaster loan application. And it's based on a function of your gross profit, a percentage of your gross profit. And they were going to get money fast to business owners. And then if it ends up that you qualified for the loan, it was going to get wrapped up into the loan. And then if you didn't qualify for the loan, it was going to be considered a grant. They just released new guidance that it's all grant money. So I haven't heard of any of our clients actually getting any of those dollars yet, but they're processing those as fast as they can, because when everyone heard $10,000 of free money, it was marketed very well. And so everyone crushed the SBA website, and every business in America plugged in for their free $10,000. So it's not going to be everyone gets $10,000. It's up to $10,000 based on a sliding scale on your gross sales and cost of goods sold. And they earmarked, I believe it was $1 billion for this. So with everyone crushing that, these are mostly sold out at this point as far as getting in line for getting your emergency advance.
But again, because it's sold out, I think you'll see potentially at least an expansion of this program. So you want to have your numbers ready so you can apply and get to the front of the line as quickly as possible.
Yeah, having your numbers ready is essential. And speaking of numbers ready, I would go back and look at your last couple years of tax returns, because this next provision is a massive one if you're someone who's had either an early stage business where you've sunk a large amount of investments back into it, or had a couple trying years where you had some losses. So a net operating loss is when you have a business that has a loss, and then if it flows through to your personal return, it's also deducted against any other income, and then you still have a negative taxable income. And it used to be, until they had this massive tax reform in 2018, any net operating loss that you had, you could then go back up to 3 years, amend those prior year returns, and if you had any tax in those years, it could be a deduction against that tax, and you'd get cash now from prior year's taxes. They eliminated that provision in 2018, and you could only go forward with those losses. Well, they temporarily brought those back as part of the CARES Act, and that's through the end of the year. You can actually go back up to 5 years on any losses that you've had in 2018, 2019, or what you're going to have potentially in 2020. And so you have to amend your tax returns to do this, but you can go back up to 5 years. And so if you had a loss in 2018 or 2019, so if it's 2018, you hopefully should have already filed your return. You can take that tax return and then amend it and apply it back to up to 5 years. And then in 2019, if you haven't filed yet, get filed ASAP so you can show that net operating loss and then carry it back and amend your returns to get cash right now. That's a great, great program for any business owners who are showing those losses. But as we've hammered home a few times, you need to act fast. So they earmarked $500 billion through this out of the $2.2 trillion for businesses. And that sounds like a lot, but there's 32 million businesses in America. And every one of them, well, not everyone, but most of them, as you saw, 2/3 really, really need help right now. And so everyone, and even the ones that maybe don't need help, are still applying just to see if they can get some free or cheap working capital. So you want to make sure that you've got your accounting records lined up and you have all required documents, which is your tax returns, your financials, so your monthly sales reports that are going to want to see from the previous 12 periods, and then your monthly payroll reports by employee as well. And then you've got to calculate your full-time equivalents. And so it's essential that you get your accounting records and everything lined up. So how we've been helping our clients in this process over these last couple weeks is through, number one, consulting with them on the business impact of how these forgivable loans are going to affect them on taking them versus not, laying people off versus not, and how that's going to impact them. Also helping them learn how to pivot and do those skunkworks tests and see how they can create new business models in this new world that we're going to be living in. Hopefully we'll return back to normal, but just in case, and at least in this immediate period of time. And then analyzing all potential payroll tax credits and other planning opportunities to make sure that they're maximizing their tax savings through this $2.2 trillion bill. And then lastly, you've got to manage your cash flow once this abundance of funds hits, because a lot of businesses are making ends meet weekly, weeks at a time. They're not used to having 3, 4, 6 months of cash in the bank and expenses. And with these disaster loans, now the payroll loan is different because it's just a couple months of expenses, but based on your debt to income ratio, you could suddenly have a year's worth of expenses in the bank, and you don't want to spend it all in one place. And so you want to make sure that you have the systems in place to manage your cash flow so that you don't end up taking a loan to save your business. And then at the end of the 3 months or the next 4 or 5 months, you end up in a worse place than you were before you took any of this relief. So those are the main areas we've been helping our clients. But of course, our purpose and our mission is to help as many business owners through this process as possible. But with the incredibly high demand across the country, not only us, but accountants everywhere aren't able to keep up with this on a one-to-one capacity. And so when we were kind of discussing back and forth with Tony about how we can help the most people and the most businesses so that they can save their team members' jobs, we came up with an alternative. And that alternative is this, the Business Owner Stimulus Kit. So it's a 90-day teaching, training, coaching program, along with a series of tools and calculators that's going to help you not only maximize the stimulus program, but also put the financial tools in place to make your business position to thrive at the end of this 90-day period as we return back to normal when no other businesses are doing this. So what we're putting into this kit and this program is the tools, templates, and resources that you can use to get your business lean, create a budget, figure out how to pivot, develop new sources of revenue, and generate short-term cash now while you're waiting on that relief. And then use our payroll tax credit maximizer tool to help you calculate whether you should use the payroll tax credits or go after the loans. And then we have the calculators in place. Remember, I mentioned earlier, the banks are putting the onus on the business owner to calculate what they think they should be eligible for in these payroll loans. We've created templates and calculators that you'll be able to use so that you can navigate this process yourself. And then a financial forecasting roadmap so that now that, okay, we've got the funds, what are we going to do into the future so that our business, and this is something you should be doing anyways, winter or not, having a financial plan and a forecast to know where you're going is essential to running a healthy business. And then we've put together some industry-specific cash flow models so that we can unleash yourselves on knowing and teaching yourself and walk through the process of knowing where your cash is going to go over these next 3 to 12 months. And of course, we're going to be in the group, in the Facebook group, live, doing these weekly live trainings to walk you through how to use all these tools and equip you with the process. And I have an entire team of experts that have been literally studying this round the clock to figure out what the latest is on it. And we'll be in the group updating you on a regular, ongoing basis. And then a Facebook group, we're going to bring in experts, but also you'll have a community of like-minded business owners going through winter together and sharing what's worked for them, how they've pivoted and created new revenue models, how they've had success in getting access to this relief. And so if we were to help a business owner one-on-one with each of these items, it would cost over $21,000 to do that. But number one, we don't have the capacity to do that because every business owner out there needs help with this right now. And number two, a lot of businesses are struggling to come up with the cash. So we wanted to come up with a way that we could help as many businesses as possible. And that's what this is. And so we're doing that for $497 a month for 3 months. And so if this is something you're interested in, want help with, and would love to have me guide you along this entire process over the next 90 days, love it if you go to stimuluskit.com and get your toolkit, get access to the group, and then I'll be in there along with my team helping guide you all along the way.
And guys, I want to bring up for you is the purpose of this session was help you hopefully not get fearful by at least getting some more data. You can keep your same point of view. We're not asking you to change any of your behaviors, just get out of the fear, help others do it. 2, think about the fact this opportunity that's right now economically, if you keep your head clear, there's great investment opportunities and give you the book so you can tap on your own time of that. And 3, to remind you the kinds of things you got to look at to your business and give you what the lay of the land is here. And then I've gone, as I said earlier, I went to 3 different legal firms, could not get the results that I wanted, and the cost there for me was between $10,000 and $20,000. And I talked to Tyler. He helped a bunch of our clients already, but he's run out of capacity. I said, there's got to be a way where you could coach people in a small, intimate group, but still give them the attention they need to get their individual questions answered and go forward. And so he's offered to do this for 3 months at $495. So it's a ridiculous price. He did it for me. I'm taking no profit from this, obviously, whatsoever. I'm making this totally his piece. It's really designed for him to add so much value to you in getting you these loans and helping you get through and design the cash flow and so forth, that hopefully he's done enough for you that you'll decide to become his client long-term. That'll be the real benefit he'll get. But we just want to make sure you're educated, you have the answers. And so let's take real quick a few questions and answers. But before we do, just for 60 seconds, let me remind you what I said. I talked about, Humpty Dumpty's now put together the same way. You got to know your numbers, call it tight. You got to be brainstorming and creating some skunk works. So here's just 3 examples or 4 real fast. I just saw this corn cakes company. This is a bakery up in San Francisco. As you can imagine, people are freaked out. California is one of the first states to do a shutdown. Their business is going to go under. And they said, you know what? People are going to still want to be delighted. They want a cake. So they create these cakes. They're smaller, like for 2 to 4 people, and have on the cover, wash your hands, don't touch your face. All these little quotes, and their business is going crazy. They're doing more business today than before the issue because they adapted. They started to think where people's heads are. Let's deliver directly to them. They're not going to come to us. Let's go to another one. Pizza delivery. My goodness. Pizza delivery is exploding because everyone's at home. They're wanting the food and they're wanting to make sure they get it quickly with a guarantee. So Papa John's is showing that they're adding 20,000 people. The revenues are growing 3% globally, 2.3% in 3 months for them, just entering 29. Pizza Hut is adding 30,000 positions, right? There's 1,000 new workers looking for people in the Chicago area stores and so forth for Domino's. So there are people that are doing well, but they're adapting. In this case, not adapting, they're just needing more people. Let's go to the next one. CVS, which many of you know, is hiring 50,000 full-time and part-time people right away. That's how much they need right now. And what they're doing, again, that they diversify, they said people are not all going to run back. They need their prescriptions. So now they're doing their own. They hire their own people, not an outside source, and providing 2-day service locally to the people that normally get them from their pharmacy. And they're watching a huge jump in who they're hiring and what they're growing. Instacart is looking to hire 300,000 people. So I want you to know there are businesses that are doing well. I think we had one more, this steak, This Dallas butcher, I was real impressed by this man. Here's a normal butcher. He just sells meats. No one's supposed to go inside his facility. March sales are projected to be up 50% more than normal. He took his 1,400 square foot shop where people were allowed to come in. He set up his parking lot. And he not only decided to deliver food, people, they drive up and they take out for the food, but now he hired a chef. So you can have cold steak, right, to go cook at home, or the meals there and to prepare these side dishes that people need. Now he's taking on 1,500 more square feet. He's doubling the size of his business in the middle of the coronavirus and positioned well to meet customers' needs going forward. So I just want you to think about this is really about getting creative. It's really about anticipating how to meet people's needs in a new way. If you're not filled with fear, you can start focusing on solutions. Let's do a couple of other Q&A about anything we've talked about, but especially about the loans or anything related to it. Let's have my moderator take over and tell us who we've got up there.
Hey guys, Milo and Michelle here, Fort Myers, Florida.
Great to see you guys. What's your question? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Well, one of our questions is, Tyler, you did a fantastic job of explaining a lot of the stuff, so you pretty much answered it, but I know that it's not on the net payroll, it's what we pay, not what the employee makes. But what I want to know is it also inclusive as that annual bonus? So if I do quarterly bonuses, so I calculate all potential pay for the rest of this year, divide that by 12, and then multiply that times 2.5. Is that right?
Yeah, so they would they would include bonuses in your previous 12 months in the maximum loan amount calculation. And then whatever you pay in the 8-week period is what's forgiven. Now they do cap it at $100,000 of wages annualized per employee. So if you take 8 weeks divided by 52, the cap is $15,384 is what you can pay each employee in payroll costs during that period. So when you're factoring in your bonus during the forgiveness period, as long as it doesn't go above that threshold, then you're okay. But the other piece that you want to look at during that threshold is retirement payments. So retirement contributions paid by the employer count as payroll costs. And so you can actually if you normally pay 3% match during the year and you do that in December at the end of the year, maybe you can do a forecast on what you think you're going to pay on that.
Right.
And then you can match that during the 8-week period and get that portion forgiven instead of waiting till December. And so that's one way that you can maximize that forgiveness period.
So think of bonuses, retirement, any of those things you want to pay during that 8-week period, and then you're going to be benefiting your client, meaning your internal employee, but you'll also be able to be reimbursed, right? Because it'll be part of the forgiveness. So that's the perfect time to load that up, and it's appropriate and legal and playing by the rules to do it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Excellent.
Thanks for your question. Great question. Let's go for another one.
One more we have, and that is on the paperwork. It only allows you, at least where we went to our bank, allows you to add up the payroll. But when do you show all your other overhead, all the other contributions?
Oh yeah, good question. So there's the two components are the max loan amount and then the forgiveness period. So they don't use the rent and utilities and other components in the maximum loan amount. It's only a factor of the payroll. That's why they do it to a 2.5 month factor, and then the forgiveness is within 8 weeks. So you got a little bit of buffer there. So where the rent and utilities comes into play is in that forgiveness calculation. Now, every bank requests different information. Some banks want all that up front. They want your rent and utilities while you're providing it. Others sounds like they're just wanting the payroll so they can figure out what the loan is. Let's disperse the loan and then figure out the forgiveness period on the back end. And so that's where probably the difference is. Your bank is just asking for the maximum loan amount, would be my guess.
Exactly. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you. Next question.
Whoa, get ready, bam-a-lam. Whoa, get ready, bam-a-lam. Whoa, get ready, bam-a-lam.
Hi.
Abraham, how are you?
Hi, Bram.
Hey, great. Hey, Tony. Hey, Tyler. Thank you very much for that great information. My question to you is, does my business need to have dropped significantly in order to take the PPP program?
That is an excellent question. And so the disaster loan, yes, you need to show damages. What they're asking for, the criteria on the payroll protection loan, is you need to certify that due to current economic uncertainty, you need this loan in order to continue operations. Well, that's a very vague, broad term, and everyone's uncertain and has no clue what's going to happen over the next 6 to 9 months. So to me, I feel comfortable, even though business might be doing good right now in your business, depending on if you're making cake, quarantine cakes. But who knows when that's going to drop off and suddenly no one has any spending money. So I feel comfortable certifying that due to current economic uncertainty, I need that money to make sure that I continue to pay my people. Otherwise, I'm going to make a lot leaner hiring decisions and retention decisions than if I didn't have that payroll. So that's how I would approach that.
Well, the answer to the question, so to be crystal clear, is
no.
No. You don't have to have experienced it. If you're concerned, that's all that matters. If you have a reason for concern, you don't have to explain the reason for concern. We all have it. You don't have to worry about it. That's not part of the criteria for qualifying for the loan. They're wanting to get all of us employers to keep people out of unemployment, ideally for another 90 days, while hopefully the economy goes back to work and hopefully people start to operate in a normal way so we can limit the number of people in unemployment. That's the whole basis of this. So they're pushing to get the money out. Now, working with the right bank to speed it up, getting your application in immediately are the critical components here. So you guys can do it on your own, or somebody like Tyler can help you.
Thank you.
Next question.
Yeah, thank you.
Money, stay on my craft and stick around for those pounds. But I do that.
How we doing?
Tony, how are you?
Good to
Tyler?
see you. Nice to see you, Jeffrey.
You too, you guys. Hey, thanks for all this information. Tony, thank you for setting us up for this winter and being in a position to help and to do other things for our employees and those around us. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Quick question now. I've and I think you kind of answered a little bit of this, Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
I went to my kind of regional bank and they were very efficient, very quick. But what are the other banks that people could go to that you're finding an efficiency in terms of getting it through the process?
Yeah. So yeah, good move going to the bank that you had a relationship with. But I've had clients I've been on the phone with in the last couple of days that say, "Hey, my bank's not doing it. Where do I go?" So I would say look for someone who is either an SBA Express lender, because they're kind of have a little bit more leeway to put things through faster, or go to try your community bank, because they're number one, they have a lot fewer to process. I saw one major bank, I think it was Wells Fargo, already had they had 10 billion set aside, or 10 billion allocated for this. And they were at 97% of that in applications already just in the first week of it. So these community banks have a little more flexibility just because they don't have as broad of a business client base. And so look for an SBA Express lender who can help you with it, or a community bank is what I would say with that.
Right. Thank you so much for for it all.
Thank you. Let's do a few questions just off the Q&A side without visuals, just to speed it up. Let's take 3 or 4 of them here. Can I have my moderator pop in and offer a few to us?
Hey, Tony and Tyler. How are you guys? This question comes from Justin Benton and many others. Question is, are 1099 employee payments included in payroll costs?
That has been a back and forth on, was the law written for it? Is it not? And I'm fortunate that just yesterday, the Department of Treasury released a brand new FAQs on their website that says that 1099s are not included in payroll costs. So they're not included either in the maximum loan amount or the forgiveness period. So anyone who's an independent contractor would not be eligible in that payroll cost. However, they can go apply for this loan themselves. So this is for keeping your employees on staff, and then any vendors that you work really closely with, I would send them this information and encourage them to apply, especially as they add more money on the back end of this. Because the way that they calculate it for a 1099 independent contractor, it's not on, even if you don't have payroll, you can still apply for this as a 1099, and they calculate it based on your 2019 net income on your tax return. And the reason why is because the way that self-employment tax and Social Security works is if you're a 1099 sole proprietor, you're paying Social Security on the net income of your business. And so they're counting that as part of wages for the purposes of this PPP loan. So no, it doesn't count if you're paying 1099s, but those vendors, if you want to help them stay afloat, send them this information so that they know that they can access this capital too. And they haven't been clear on how they're going to calculate the forgiveness. I have a feeling what they'll do is they'll ask for accounting records and bank statements to see what your net income was during that 8-week period if you're truly a sole independent contractor, and then they'll forgive whatever that income is during that period. So that's been a big contention, and now we finally got some clarity from the Treasury Department.
Awesome. Couple more questions. We'll finish up in 5 minutes.
This question comes from Dina Moench and many others. What programs are best for the sole proprietor?
Yeah, so that element of the PPP, it's depending on your net income, it's going to be not a huge loan amount just because it's 2.5 months of your net income capped at 100,000. So that's basically one employee's maximum. So I would really look at on those is going for that disaster loan, because you can get a income to debt service coverage ratio of 1.25, basically meaning your debt payments can be up to 80% of your net operating income. So you can get and with that payment on 3.75% interest over 30 years, you can get a pretty sizable amount of capital with that disaster loan. So that is where I would go. And then I would make sure you're looking at the payroll tax credits, any net operating loss elements you had, and really doing proper tax planning to make sure that you minimize your taxes this year, and try to access the other elements of it as well, of the bill as well.
Great. Couple more.
This question comes from Michael Gaver. What if you are a new business and revenue has not ramped up yet?
So that is a tough one. So if you're a brand new business, meaning you went into opening on March 5th, I haven't really seen a lot of guidance on that. What they're looking for, if you've been in business for less than a year, they are taking your numbers based on January and February. So they don't need a full 12 months. They're getting you a little bit of break there on the January and February, but I don't know how they're going to calculate the FTE equivalent. I think they'll just use that period. So that's how they're calculating the payroll. And then the same thing on the disaster loan, they're looking at not your annual net income, but just those last couple months of net income. And so that's what they're trying to do for these businesses who, well, like the coffee shop client that I shared earlier, had just bought a second location at the end of January and then had to shut it down. It's terrible. But so that's what they're trying to do with getting capital to those types of businesses.
2 more questions.
Okay, this question comes from Steve Karekis. Do actual payroll costs include just the salary or all of the taxes businesses have to pay as well?
So payroll taxes are not included. It's the salary, but it is. So I guess to clarify that question is income tax withholdings don't impact the loan amount. So if someone's wage is $5,000 and their net check is 3,000. The loan amount isn't on the 3,000; it's on the 5,000. But the payroll taxes aren't included in the payroll calculation. It's just gross wages for the employee.
And somebody's asking, I think you've answered it this way, but they're saying, so owners, small owners with K1s can apply for themselves, right?
Yeah, so they can apply for themselves. It is still going to be based on their officer salary for the calculation, and then what they pay. But you can pay yourself as an owner through this. So they're wanting to keep Social Security funded, basically, is one of the other goals here. And so when you pay yourself as an S corporation through W-2, that counts as wages during the forgiveness period and the loan maximization.
One more question.
This question comes from Jeff Muse and many others. Are there any incentives for landlords that own properties and have tenants not paying rent?
Yeah, so this is part of the program. So you've been affected. That's part of the disaster. They're going to get you capital. They're going to look at your payroll, and that is considered a business. These landlords that are struggling, it is considered a business, and they're definitely putting those right up at the top of the pile and that's part of why the rent is included in the forgiveness. They're wanting to keep landlords, afloat too, because that could dramatically destroy the economy if suddenly everyone who held real estate isn't collecting rent. So that's why they're encouraging this on the forgiveness period, and then they're just looking at that. They're considering you a business if you're a landlord on the disaster loan piece.
Well, I hope that's answered some of your questions. Again, our whole goal today is really simple, just trying to support you as business owners. We're in the same boat, all of us together. We want to take care of our people. We want to grow our business. We want to get back to where we are. How do you do it? Get out of fear, educate yourself in that area, make decisions in there, apply whatever the government's telling you to apply. Of course, live by those rules, but don't let fear be the dominant force. 2, look around and see if there's opportunity to invest. Even if you're tight, this might be a place to do that. If you've been educating yourself, and we've given you access if you want to pick up Unshakable for no cost to you, just shipping and handling, or you can go pick it up and pay full price at the bookstore or at Amazon or wherever you want. But I just want to give you solutions that we can never do in a short period of time here. And then the purpose primarily here, and we'll repost here, has been what is available and how do you take advantage of it to get you through the next 90 days, perhaps, to where the light might be, and then simultaneously be in the system, at the top of the system as soon as you can. So if they do expand it, you can take advantage of that already. Your numbers are in place with the bank and so forth. And so hopefully you've got somebody who can do that for you. If not, I highly recommend Tyler. I'm taking no income from this. This is not a play on my part. And I asked him to figure a way, since he couldn't do enough of all of you individually, they could do for you collectively, but still give you the personal attention. And so his 90-day plan to give you all the resources you need and coach you and show you how to get through it is $495 a month for 3 months. So, and I hope you found this to be valuable today. Tyler, thank you for taking the time with everybody.
Yeah,
and let's start Tyler's contact info one last time too, for people who might want to work with him. And say to all of you, stay strong, live with passion, and God bless. We'll see you soon.